So diversify in terms of your measurement providers, aggregate, and then link it to find causality between those points and your profitable business results.
Have you ever personally caught a platform just lying?
Plenty of times. There's plenty of times, and it's mostly within the Google stack. I don't know if it's lying as it's just lazy.
Fudging the numbers.
Fudging the numbers, definitely.
Today's guest is James McDonald, Managing Director at Audience Group and unofficial myth-buster-in-chief of modern advertising. He's been in the game since banner ads were cutting edge, thinks paid search is a racket, and believes most marketers are confusing noise for impact. If you're still measuring success with CTR, James is here to ruin your afternoon in the best way possible.
Multi-billion-dollar complex federal court litigation. We do it day in, day out. And we've built a team dedicated to doing nothing but keeping you safe in the most dangerous litigation in the world. We're comfortable where everybody else is horribly uncomfortable.
And with the litigation piece, we bring the compliance piece, right? That's what I'm adding. That's what my entire team is adding. We've built TCPA World only for you folks to help you folks out.
All right, folks, welcome to the ADOTAT Show, where we skip the fluff and get straight to brutal advertising truths. I'm Pesach Lattin. Today we've got James McDonald, a guy who's been in advertising since the internet had a dial-up tone. He thinks paid search is a scam, frequency is a tax, and most marketers are setting money on fire. Buckle up. No, I hate that. Just pay attention. This one's going to sting. Let's go. First of all, James, you've been in the advertising industry since the dawn of the internet. That means you survived every digital scam, platform hype cycle, and the great pivot to video catastrophe. Let's cut the crap. How much of what we do in advertising actually works, and how much is just well-dressed nonsense to justify our jobs?
Oh, that's a great question. Look, in 30 years of advertising, I have drunk from the Kool-Aid, spat it out, and believed it works, believed it didn't work, thought I was in a scam myself. But after 30 years, I think I've got an opinion that advertising definitely works, but probably not the way people are talking about it. A lot of people get caught up in the technical opportunities, the measurement opportunities, and they disappear into their own world of echo chambers and lose sight of how advertising works and why advertising works. But at the basis of it all, it works. It has to work. It's been running for thousands of years, advertising. It's a thing. It helps people make decisions on buying. So yeah, it works, but probably not how we think it does.
So you've said that frequency is the tax you pay for not being remembered. Can you explain that way for like a fifth grader who still believes that click-through rates are important?
The idea about frequency is a lot of people think frequency is required to aid memory. And you need to see it 1 times, 2 times, and the classic fallacy is 3 plus reach. You need you to see it 3 times before you remember it. Our opinion's a bit different, and my opinion's a bit different on this in terms of you need frequency to reinforce memory, and you want memory to make things easy to buy for people. So the initial reach point where people effectively remember your brand or your ad is great. What you need to do is wait for them to start forgetting it and then hit them again with another ad, as opposed to trying to hit them 3 times in an ad break or 3 times in a day. So the key to frequency is finding out when people start forgetting and then hit them again, rather than trying to hit them a certain number of times so they remember forever.
Can you give me an example of a campaign that got frequency right and one that burned millions in advertising that no one remembers?
I'll start with the second one. It didn't burn millions, but I was a young media planner at OMD back at the turn of the century. It sounds so old. And I had decided that heaps of frequency would work for my client, and they gave me a TV budget, and I bought a huge amount of frequency. And I compressed it into a short amount of time. And the theory was that by doing that, I'd hit a lot of people, a lot of times, they'd remember, and then I wouldn't need to advertise again for a long time. It just failed miserably. It was terrible. Because that's not how frequency works. Frequency works to aid in memory recall. Reach is what you're trying to buy, and you're trying to maximize reach as often as you can afford to within the buying cycle of the product you're selling. Where it's worked well for me, I think, is one of our clients was trying to get into the Sydney market. Sydney market's a very expensive TV market, and previously they'd just been dumping a whole lot of weight into TV, both connected TV and linear TV, and not controlling their frequency. And the minute we sat down and went, hang on a second, we really only need to hit people once a month because of the consideration cycle for this product. And we evened away all the excess frequency and put it into effective reach and incremental reach. Over the 18 months after we did that, their market share gained percentage points and their business rose about 30%, and we didn't change the advertising strategy, the advertising weight, only the advertising strategy. Now, it wasn't the only thing that helped, but definitely what happened is we got to more people more often who were more likely to be in market, and we didn't hit them 3 times when they didn't need to be reminded.
So
if last touch attribution worked, your waiter would take full credit for your meal. We make sure the chef gets credit too. Incremental.
what's a campaign that did amazing specifically? Can you name names?
Can I name names? Coca-Cola do it really well. Coca-Cola.
Yeah, I was thinking of them too. They don't advertise a lot, but I see them during the holidays.
Yeah.
They're a brand I recognize. If I see their
got
font.
two things going for them. One, they have reach in every convenience store and McDonald's restaurant in the world. So that's their advertising. And
sports. They're
in
all
sports,
over sports.
Sponsorship. But their target audience for traditional advertising, when we talk about TV ads and connected TV and audio or whatever else they're doing, is they're targeting light category buyers. They are targeting people that only drink 2 to 3 Cokes a year because they know they're going to get to their heavy cola purchases just by being a point of sale. So their aim is to reach people with a wonderful holiday ad, because that holiday ad is going to be remembered for months, and then it's going to be re-triggered once you get to point of sale. And that's a beautiful use of reach over frequency. That they're reaching you every time you're making a purchase decision by being on the refrigerator you're pulling the cola out of. That's perfect reach.
So, speaking of platform attribution, why do brands still trust it like it's gospel when it's more like a bad game of telephone where every single person is lying?
Why do people trust it? Because it's a data point that they can point to. If it can be measured, it can be managed, and this platform attribution is free. It's easy to get hold of, and it's easy to use to justify and post-rationalize what you've done. And as flawed as it may be, if you don't think past the obvious, it tells a really good story, paints a really good picture, and allows people to justify to the CFOs and to the CEOs why they're investing in the channels they are.
So what do you think about incremental attribution?
Incremental attribution, I believe in it, if it can be done correctly. If you're able to control, to define what that incrementality is. So those tests need to be defined quite well. See, I'm old. We used to do direct marketing. We used to have holdout tests. We used to be able to prove incrementality of an offer or a channel or a target audience selection because we could hold out. I think unless you're really good at doing randomized control trials, which I'm not and I don't understand the stats well enough, unless you're doing probably geographic A/B tests, unless you're literally comparing 2 parts of a country that are geographically or demographically the same, and you're doing one thing in one and not the other, and you're controlling for that element, it's very hard to understand whether advertising has been incremental or not. I think there's a lot of fluff in terms of somewhat the platform incrementality and the measurement is.
So what is the biggest lie that marketers tell themselves?
Consumers.
Besides brand safety.
Damn, the consumers make rational decisions is the biggest lie anyone ever makes. No, the humans are not inherently rational beings. And as soon as you start trying to design to a funnel or to a metric that says consumers will be rational in their decision making, you've lost. So if you think all this data is proving the rationality of humans and you're going to design your ad campaign around that to address that, or your media, then you're wrong. And our first client when we started our business, my business partner and I, about 12 years ago, was a mortgage lender. And they had the cheapest rate in market all the time, always. And the owner of that business couldn't understand why he wasn't winning. Because rationally, everyone should go for the cheapest price for a home loan. Like, it's got all the features. The features are the same. You're borrowing the money. You're not taking the risk, as it were. But that's not how people work. Even when it comes to mortgages that are hundreds of $1,000s where, 0.5%, 0.25% makes a big difference, they don't make rational decisions.
Yeah, well, consumers sometimes pick the middle one no matter what. They just assume the mid one is the right one. If they go too high, it must be too much. If they go too low, it must be too low. So the middle person must be the person who's the best.
Anchoring, love it. It's a great pricing strategy.
So if you could press a button and delete one advertising metric from the industry forever, what would it be? And personally, I want to see click-through rate have a funeral.
That's my answer, click-through rate. I mean, I'm yet to see any study that can prove that increasing click-through rates increases profit for a client. I've tried. I've gone through it with all of my clients' data and done attribution as best I can, done causality testing, done whatever I can to try and show that click-through rates generate more sales. The only possible way a click-through rate, in my mind, can generate an increased click-through rate can generate more sales is if you're clicking through to a really engaging piece of content that you spend time with, that becomes basically a cinema ad or a 30-minute ad or a 10-minute ad because you spent that much time on the website. That's the only time I've seen a click and an increase in clicks have anything positive for a brand, and that's going to be more around brand awareness.
We used to call those microsites, remember?
Exactly, yeah. We used to make them in Flash.
Build microsites. I remember I used to build them for Ziff Davis.
Yeah.
For all the different computer products.
Oh, everybody's done it for everything. We used to do it for Vodafone. We had some great fun doing that, and people would spend time with it. I think, but yeah, this obsession with click-through rates is you're just paying the platforms money when you don't need to. We're getting these old people like me with fat fingers, Let's
talk about something even murkier, how brands waste their budgets while convincing themselves they're marketing geniuses. So what's the biggest mistake advertisers make when allocating their budgets?
The biggest, for me, is not valuing the longer-term effects of advertising and overstating the short-term effects. When people start deciding that a click-through from search is worth more than a television ad on a cost per thousand basis in terms of effect, then you're missing the point of advertising, and all you're doing is paying for very expensive media. So there's not enough understanding about the long-term effects of advertising, I think, with a lot of people in the market at the moment. We're over investing into the performance retail side of advertising and forgetting that advertising isn't the only thing that makes a difference to a sale. Advertising is just helping you get your brand into people's brains to make it easier for them to buy when it comes time to buy, to reduce the cognitive load. So not being able to value that, not being able to model for it, not understanding how you can build longer-term effects of their advertising. When you do, there's so much work out there from Les Binet, Peter Field, and others that will tell you that you get a much better return on investment when you invest into longer term and shorter term.
So what's the worst budget disaster story you've seen firsthand recently, and did it involve a 6-month metaverse activation?
What is the worst budget disaster I've ever seen? This is a good question. Give me a second. I'm going to think about it.
I think for me, I always bring up pets.com.
Pets.com.
Speaking of turn of the century.
Yeah, there you go. The worst one was actually a really recent one, and it's one no one will know because it's a small client that I was working with. And the client came in after we'd spent a long time working out. It's a very complicated sell. It was up to a 24-month decision-making process. Spent a lot of time aligning the long and short-term effects of the brand. We've done really nice outdoor programmatic digital out of home, well targeted when people needed to be there, backed up by a whole lot of good connected TV, as well as some search and some performance social in there, just to increase a very complicated sell. And the new marketing manager came in and decided they were going to change everything to performance and first click attribution and put all of their money into, I still don't understand why, a first click attributed performance campaign. And not surprisingly, within 3 months, everything started to tank. And so they took what was a reasonably small budget and set fire to it and tried to tell everybody that it was performance marketing's fault. For some reason, they decided that first click performance marketing was the best thing they could do. I can't make sense of that, can you?
So if a brand's budget was suddenly cut in half, what would you recommend they do to keep effectiveness high? And you can't say spend more.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, I think there's always spend. No, that's not true. It depends. It really depends. It depends on the length. It depends where the client is. It depends whether it's a market leader or not a market leader. But the first thing you do is you go, right, if brand advertising and long-term advertising has helped cement the brand in somebody's mind, it doesn't immediately stop working. It will have a residual effect. There's an advertising half-life to memory. It'll keep going, and that brand awareness will decay very slowly over time. So if we're talking about a 3-month, we've got 1 quarter, we've got to bank some money to pay the dividend to shareholders, whatever it is, so we're going to cut advertising. Cutting the brand advertising is probably the safest place to be if your performance advertising is working really well. So remembering that advertising isn't the only thing that drives sales, and that advertising has long-term effects. You can afford to sacrifice some of your future sales by reducing some of your longer-term brand effects first, focusing on retail, focusing on performance, keep your sales going, and then know that you can come back in with brand. And when you do, you have to make sure that you're making up for lost time.
So you basically called paid search a scam, and that's a pretty bold claim considering entire careers are built on optimizing Google ad spreadsheets. What do you think is the main ripoff?
Yeah, they're marking their own homework. That's the main ripoff. You're trusting a platform to spend your money and tell you if it's working or not. I liken search to putting an ad outside a supermarket on a poster saying buy Campbell's soup, and then saying every can of soup within the supermarket that got bought was because of that ad. Just putting an ad in front of someone before they buy doesn't mean that ad had anything to do with them buying. And yet if you read how search is sold, and I get called by Google weekly from different clients telling me that I have to buy my own brand terms, I have to be number one in the search position, I have to make sure I'm buying more Google search because that'll get me more sales. I've never seen incrementality from a search campaign unless somebody hadn't been doing search properly. I'm picking up search campaigns that have been running for years. I'm yet to find a search campaign I can randomly turn 25% off and it makes no difference to the profit of a client. I can't see it. It doesn't exist. It's not that search isn't important. It's massively overstated in its importance.
Yeah, I mean, especially with coupon sites and stuff. I mean, you have your name and you run your name and you're working with a coupon site and you're working with a search, and the top 5 results are all ways to get your product cheaper.
Yes.
And all that does is the person's going to buy the product more. I mean, there's a lot of studies that say that the main reason people use search for brands is to find a cheaper alternative or a coupon. So when they're searching your name and you're providing the way to buy the product they're going to buy cheaper, it does seem insane to me.
And there's no empirical evidence that discounting makes more profit for any client. You're bringing buyers into market to buy your product and never bought it before, and you're setting a price expectation that's lower than what you want it to be in the long term. I mean, it just makes no sense. And there's no loyalty from a cheap price either. So you're losing both ways when you do it like that.
So why are people clinging to paid search?
Because there aren't any yellow pages anymore. It is a directory. It helps people buy. If I need a plumber right now, I don't know who to call. I'm going to go and search it. It's got a it's got a utility to it that has been removed from the market by not having yellow pages advertising and directory advertising. So it definitely helps brands with their physical distribution. If you can't be everywhere, you can be on search. It's shelf space. You got to put your brand into that supermarket, particularly services brands. So when you don't have huge physical distribution, it's a major part of that physical distribution. So you think about local search is really important. If I'm out and about and I want to find something, I want to find a pub to go to tonight, I'm going to local search. It still has a very, very important role to play in those situations. If I'm shopping and I see those shopping results and I can see a cheaper price in the shopping results, yeah, I'm in a store at that point. So it holds shelf space opportunities, it holds physical distribution opportunities, and there are times where that's really important.
So if Google Ads disappeared tomorrow, what would be the first advertising tactic you'd recommend?
I'd recommend a few things. One is to ensure that your content is optimized to Chat GPT and Perplexity and all of those AI engines, because that's where search is moving to. But the most important thing is to play the long game, is to get your brand into people's brains so that when they enter the category, they think about you, or when they enter the category and they see your product, it triggers some sort of emotional response for them. Because all we're trying to do with advertising is reduce the cognitive load when it comes time to making decisions. Humans are inherently lazy. They do not want to think as much as they can. They want to make a decision quickly. If you had to rationally buy your groceries every week, you'd never leave the grocery store. So the idea is advertising is to make it really easy for you to buy. I'm going to reach for that product. I'm not sure why, but it feels good. I'm going to buy that middle price product. I've got all these positive emotional reinforcements. So if you remove search, you just move further up the funnel to where a couple of things happen. It's cheaper on a cost per thousand basis. It has a longer term impact. So on a cost per memory, it's cheaper. And you're likely to hit people that aren't buying but will recommend it to other people and create word of mouth. So you're not sometimes broadening your target audience. A lot of times broadening your target audience has more benefit than narrowing in onto it.
So you've emphasized that attention matters a great deal more than impressions, not just whether an ad is served, but whether it gets noticed and remembered. Traditional metrics like click-through rates and impressions fail to capture real engagement. So what is the biggest myth then about attention advertising?
Biggest myth for me in the way that it's sold back to me by vendors is that some sort of interaction with an ad unit is some sort of proxy for attention. And it's not, because that's not how attention metrics work. The attention metrics you want to work with are people like Amplified Intelligence, who are actually trying to work out, or Adelaide, but trying to work out how engaged is the brain when people are watching a certain or listening to stimulus, and how likely is that stimulus to be remembered, and how long will it be remembered for. That's what attention's about. It's not about whether you've interacted with an ad unit, whether you've clicked through to something. They're the false reads. They have no correlation to attention, and we need attention to make our advertising last long.
Do you think we'll ever charge cost per attention?
I plan to it. I plan to cost per days in memory. So yes, you should, because I'm trying to work out, I need to be close to people when they buy with my advertising. I need to be in the room when they make the decision. I can't always buy a media placement there. So the best way I can do that is a TV ad or a cinema ad or a great radio campaign or connected TV at the right time just beforehand. If I'm selling McDonald's breakfast, I'm going to hit you the night before. If I get the attention right, it'll last in your memory longer and my brand will be in the room when it comes time to buy. So all of our long-term advertising is planned with the theory of how many days in memory will this ad get me? So what's my cost per days in memory? So yeah, I'd be, if I was selling my inventory as a publisher, I'd be putting that overlay on. That's really exciting. What you're telling me is you can buy one ad on my site instead of 3 ads on that site. I'm going to charge you twice, but you just still save 30%, 33%. So
Is there a case where an advertiser optimized for attention and won?
yeah, we did it with our client, Slater & Gordon, which is a personal injury law firm. We were working with Chalice Algorithms out of New York, really smart company. And a shout out to Adam, who's really helped us deliver a really, really good product to our clients. We optimized their connected TV buy to a SINT study, an always ongoing ad recall brand lift study. And that worked really well. So we took the signal back from that study, put it around the exhaust bid data that we had and looked at the bid conditions that were driving those outcomes, modified our bidding strategy towards those bid factors, and it went well. Then what we did is we worked with Karen Nelson Field at Amplified Intelligence. We got a data set from her to Adam, and we built a pre-bid algorithm that scored the inventory based on the likelihood of that attention lasting in memory. And we rolled that algorithm out. And when we rolled that algorithm out, you saw massive gains, over 100% increase in the ad recall and brand recall for that same campaign with the same targeting. And just by overlaying attention, it gave huge lift to the efficacy of that campaign.
So if an ad gets ignored, is it even an ad? What should every marketer ask before launching a campaign?
If the ad is seen and ignored, it still has an effect probably, particularly for a strong brand, because your brain is always subconsciously processing what it sees, even if it is screening it out. I think if an ad is served and not seen, if you're serving an ad that doesn't render, but it looks like it gets seen, then that's a major problem. So I think you can certainly build advertising for low attentive areas, but it needs to be seen for at least 3 seconds. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. It needs to be reasonably screen dominant or it's a waste of time. So I'm not too worried about ignored ads. I'm worried about very small ads that are on for 2 seconds. I'm worried about people who are scrolling quickly through an environment and really not getting impacted by your ad. So aim for 3 seconds and look for as much of the screen as you can and get your logo as big as you can, because that will still work even if people aren't paying attention.
So who's getting attention metrics currently wrong? Let's name names, or at least describe them in vague but obvious terms. And if they have meta in their name, I won't be surprised.
I don't think there's too many people getting it right, is more what I'm going to do. I'm not going to fall for that clickbait, but I think most of those technology vendors that are saying that they can assume attention by some sort of interaction with an ad
like
unit.
The click-through you mentioned.
The click-through is wrong.
A click isn't attention.
Interaction with an ad unit isn't attention. I mean, if you've put a game in there and they started playing the game, yeah, well, then you've got attention. Most people, like, if you're just scrolling through, you're accidentally clicking it, let's understand. It could be attention, it might not be attention, but you can't take 100% of what you say as attention. I think there's very few people getting it right. I think is more the answer, because to get it right, you need to have a very, very strong neuroscience background, and you need to have done a lot of empirical studies on it. There needs to be a lot of quantitative research sitting behind it, and you need to continuously refine your buy towards it. I think if you just rely on someone else's view of what attention is, particularly if they're using it to increase their CPMs they charge you, then be very, very, very wary of it.
So one of the problems that everyone talks about is ad measurement. It's still the Wild West of conflicting numbers, self-attributed conversions, and platforms grading their own homework, as you mentioned. You're skeptical of most platform attribution models, particularly last-click attribution and viewability metrics. So let's play detective here. How should brands spot the lies in their measurement reports?
Yeah, don't just measure from one place. There's more than one source of truth. For me, when I look at a GA report, GA4 or a 360 version of it, I'm usually running another tag on my client's site. Maybe it's an ad server tag or a DSP tag, and I'm constantly correlating the results between the two. I'm looking at my ad serving data, I'm looking at my DSP data, I'm looking at the analytics data, I'm trying to get more than one analytics data read on that as well. And the truth lies somewhere in the middle of all of those things. I think as soon as you start believing one vendor, you're in for a world of hurt. But ultimately, you take that basket of data and you link it to your business results, and you try and see if there's a causation that's happening between the two. When you start doing that, the accuracy of the data set becomes less relevant. It's the movements within that data set that becomes important. If you can see that when these set of attributes move up, even if they're only 90% correct, but you're getting a business result, then you've done really well. So diversify in terms of your measurement providers, aggregate, and then link it to find causality between those points and your profitable business results.
Have you ever personally caught a platform just lying?
Plenty of times. There's plenty of times, and it's mostly within the Google stack. I don't know if it's lying as it's just lazy.
Fudging the numbers.
Fudging the numbers, definitely. There's so many times you've gone back to the ad server, you've gone back to the trade desk data and looked at what campaign manager's saying, and they're completely two different things. I can't tell you which one's lying at that point. And then you're looking at Google and you're getting a third result. They're all telling a different story. And I'm just very skeptical of any business that's selling you something and measuring it and telling you that it's 100% correct, because it's not, and it can't be. When you're up against one of the biggest companies in the world and you're trying to say, hang on, you're telling me this was served, but I can't see it there. If you're going through DV360 and you can't see the results in your ad verification or even in your ad server, if you don't use Campaign Manager, use a different one, they're just going to wash their hands of it and go, well, that's a bit about luck. I mean, Google is a company that we paid them the other day and they were going to turn off our credit because we'd paid them the right amount, but they couldn't work out what we'd paid them and what account to put it to. So until we told them exactly what we'd paid them, it was our fault, and they were putting pressure on us to pay.
So they
we've already paid.
They couldn't even attribute your payments, you're saying?
No, I mean, that was our fault. So until we sat down with them and told them that they were going to turn us off, fair enough, I'm not going to argue with you. You can squash me like a bug.
Yeah, you can't argue with Google.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
So let's be a little bit honest. Do marketers actually want accurate measurements, or do you think that media buyers just want to look good?
The clients I work with want results. The clients that don't work with me want vanity numbers. I think it's very hard as a marketer in this environment when you've got the CFO breathing down your neck to go, explain to me why I shouldn't cut your budget. And that's a wonderful time to reach for vanity metrics. As a media agency, and we come across it as we pick up new accounts, there's a lot of brand search results making them look good. There's a lot of people justifying their results with really, really poor measurement. There's a lot of people hiding behind those results when they're not getting their business numbers. There's just, if you want to tell a good story, then find those numbers. If you actually want to make a difference, find out how those numbers apply to real world business results.
So the favorite part of my show, it's a ridiculous survival themed thought experiment where I strand you on a desert island. You have 5 people with you, including, I noticed in the notes, Gordon Ramsay and Taylor Swift. Here's the real question. Who actually helps you survive and who gets voted off the island first?
Well, Gordon Ramsay's someone who can cook really well. I think if you're stranded on a desert island.
With coconuts?
Yeah, like there's a lot of curries you can make with coconuts, I'm sure. Especially when it comes to eating one of us later. Curried long pork would be nice. I think, you know, I've got Taylor there for the music. I've got Jon Stewart there to keep me company and make me laugh. And we've got Gordon Ramsay there to cook me a meal.
And you mentioned your son and I believe your business partner? I just have partners, so I'm making an assumption.
It's my wife.
Okay.
I put my wife on the island. She's entirely practical. You know, you got to understand that when the zombie apocalypse comes, I'm going to panic and get eaten first, whereas my wife will survive right to the end. So it's really important in a survival situation that she's there.
Well, the key to the zombie apocalypse is like armor. I have never seen a movie where just people put chainmail on.
Yeah, that's a good
It's
point.
like that would solve everything right there. Chainmail.
You've thought a lot about it, I can see.
So I watched a lot of zombie movies. Let's start simple. Who's in charge on this island? Is it you, Ramsay, or Swift? I actually mentioned your wife.
Look, I'd like to think eventually I'd be in charge through psychological manipulation as required, but I think Gordon Ramsay has the knives, so I think he'll have to take it over. Yeah, don't argue with the guy with the weapon.
So if one person was going to sabotage the group, who do you think it would be and how?
Well, probably me, because I'll self-sabotage it.
Do you think it would like get full Lord of the Fries or more like passive-aggressive rationing?
I think it'd go full Lord of the Flies. No, that's not true. I don't believe that. Ultimately, I think humans come down to cooperative survival in a situation like that. There's enough anthropological evidence that humans organise eventually and find a harmony and a peace, but there'll always be the menace of somebody leading.
Between the celebrity chef, the musician, and the comedian, who's most likely to build a fire, or do you just all sit there waiting for Grubhub to drone a rescue?
That's why my wife's there. She'll make sure we survive. She grew up on a sheep farm, so, you know, she's nothing if not practical.
She can make fire?
She can do anything, yeah. I can't even swing a hammer. I'm terrible. It's like a massive role reversal in our household. She does all the important stuff, and I try and just clean up.
And if the food supplies run low, who gets eaten first?
Oh, me. I'm always going to die first in a panic, you know. And, you know, I've put on a bit of weight recently. I should make some good eating, I think. Slow cook me in a hungy in the ground. I should be good. It'd definitely be me.
A rescue ship arrives, but you can only take 3 people. Who do you leave behind, and why?
That's a good question.
I mean, you have your wife and son there. I'm going to give you a hint. That
They're off.
You probably should take them and leave everyone.
I don't think I'd go. I'm not that person. I think the world
So
needs
you're going to
Tyler.
send Jon Stewart with your wife and son?
I think the world needs Jon Stewart now more than it needs me. If we think about the world at the moment, he can make more difference to this world than I can.
You think he could be like a replacement dad?
It'd be a great replacement dad, wouldn't he? I mean, my son would grow up to be a socialist, which, that's what's going to happen. That's good.
So let's just say the advertising industry was like a desert island. Who are the people we should have left a long time ago on the island?
Affiliate marketers, as anyone in native advertising, they should all be voted off the island right now. They should all go.
Everyone who works at Outbrain in Taboola?
Completely everyone. It's just not. I'd rather that was an ad unit that had some value rather than here's a clickbait article you'd like to see.
Yeah, I still am 20 pounds overweight.
Yeah.
And I've clicked on all those ads.
I know, it's crazy. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's strange because I was interviewed, I think, in Wired in like 2006, talking about this, about the, what were they called, like farticles then? Remember?
Yes.
I mean, like I've literally been talking about this for 20 years now.
Created the toilet.
The same thing. These crappy ads that just go to fake sites and scam users.
Yeah, it's terrible. I hate it. It's really would not be upset if they never sold another. We don't buy a lot of native in our buys because I can't see how it creates profit for my client.
So you've had a hell of a journey. You've washed cars to running multi-million-dollar ad agencies, and you've got a low tolerance for BS, I note, and strong opinions on what works. So let's get a little personal. Who is James McDonald when the cameras are off, the LinkedIn posts are closed, and you're just sitting there with a drink in hand? And what is the drink in hand?
Look, I want to say wine, but it's not. It's beer. It's some sort of pale ale or IPA.
Is it Australian?
No, I'll buy it from anywhere. It is mostly Australian because it's easier to buy, but it's some sort of nice craft beer. I've got like 3 craft breweries within 5-minute walking distance of my house. I live in a very, very, very good place.
Your story has 2 versions. You have the dream big and work hard version. Let's be honest, and I had advantages versions. Which one do you prefer and why?
I've definitely had advantages. I can tell a really good story how I hustled my way and got out of bed and I wanted it more than the next person and I really wanted to make it and it was my drive and my desire and me that made this work, when in reality it was all about being in the right place at the right time and being lucky. That's what it came down to. It was all about being born in the right suburb at the right time to the right parents, going to the right schools, which I had nothing to do with, and then being able to harvest the luck that got in front of me. Now, it's not to say I didn't do any hard work, but it is all about how I was in the right place at the right time. And I'm not going to for a second assume that. I think about what I've done in my life. I've gone from here to here. If you think about someone that was born in a completely different suburb, they may have gone from here to here. That's a much bigger achievement. But the way I've moved socially is very small.
So it's the ladder. It's how far you've gone up, not how far you are.
Yeah, exactly right. That distance of movement is a lot more important. So I'd love
do you feel that you're privileged?
Completely, yeah. Look, I'm a Anglo-Saxon white male over 50 who came from the middle to upper middle classes. I'm the most privileged person on this planet, without a doubt.
So you did say your dad was your Yoda in marketing. What's one lesson from him that still guides in how you make decisions today?
Dad was in advertising. He was a madman back in the 50s and 60s in Sydney, and my brother owns an advertising agency. We can't help ourselves in this family. We tried to run screaming away from advertising and it pulled us back in. The enduring things that Dad told me is the importance of being interesting when you're making an ad. There's no point getting someone's attention and boring them to death. It can work, but mere exposure effect will win for you eventually. But Dad was all about be interesting. Storytelling is ultimately, when you can't think of anything else, tell a story, because that's the way humans have communicated for millennia. So why won't your ad work the same way? So tell a very interesting story, be interesting, and that's how you get remembered, and that's how advertising works.
Is there like a lesson he told you over and over again that you ignored, but later in life you're like, damn, he was right?
So many. And I regret he's not here to this day so I can tell him how right he was. The main thing in lesson is more around personal than around business. That is to not worry about trying to get things perfect. You are going to get things wrong, and it's okay to get things wrong, and you are going to continually repeat mistakes because that's how humans work, and you can't get frustrated by it. It's about accepting who you are and not trying to be something different, because who you are is who you are.
So if you could go back and talk to your 19-year-old self, what's the first thing you'd tell him to stop doing?
Perfection is the enemy of great, or good, as it were. Stop trying to be a perfectionist. Stop trying
Would
to
he
get
listen to you or
everything
roll his
right.
eyes?
No, he wouldn't. I wouldn't listen to myself. God, no, what would you know? But I do this with my son. My son is about to be 15, and I spend a lot of time talking to him about these sorts of things, knowing that he won't apply them till he's in his 30s, but when he does, it'll be valuable to him then. So it's about seeding the ideas earlier. It's advertising. It's always long-term brand advertising for me. I can't help it.
So we're both over 45. What do you think the biggest mistake people make about older people in this industry?
The biggest mistake people make is looking at age rather than curiosity. If somebody over 45 is still very curious, is still engaged and still interested, they still have a lot of value in this industry. If someone who's 35 has closed themselves off to new ideas, then they're not valuable. But people make this assumption that older people are no longer open to new ideas. I had a great aunt. She was an author, wrote quite a few books. She was the most interesting person I knew. Even in her 80s, she knew more about the current youth music scene than I did. And this is someone who went and lived in Japan before World War II, lived through the war in Japan, came back, came out as a lesbian in the 50s in Sydney, decided at 40 she was going to start writing books, and was just an insanely curious person. And she never seemed old. And so when you confuse age with a lack of curiosity, you miss what this industry is about. This industry is about remaining curious.
Do you think the advertising worships young talent because they're cheaper and don't know they're being underpaid?
Look, I'd like to put it as their ambition is easily exploited if you're a boss. But yes, I think shiny and new is good. There is something to be said about a 20-year-old brain and its ability to make connections that probably haven't been made before. But yeah, it's cheap talent. It's definitely cheap talent. It depends what sort of boss you are. If you're someone who doesn't like to be challenged, young people are great. If you want to be challenged and do great work, then you just employ curious people.
Let's just say you woke up tomorrow and you're not in advertising and you were going to do something completely different. What would that be?
Being told I should have been a barrister or an actuary. The trouble is I don't have a university degree. There's no way I'd make it through a university degree because I don't. It's just I have to get out there and do stuff and be practical. But I love to argue. So, barrister would be fun, be in court.
For those that don't know, that's a type of attorney.
Yes, it's a court. So an attorney that only goes to court and argues in front of a judge.
So in 3 words, how do you want people to have your career and impact when you eventually walk away from this?
You're a curious person who was a good coach. That's what I want people to know. I love coaching. I was a rugby coach from when I was 19. I really enjoy coaching a team and seeing people succeed. And I really love people who are curious and interested. So I'd like to think that I was curious and I was a good coach. In 2
So
words.
we talked advertising myths, money pits, bad metrics, desert survival. Now the real question is, where will you go from here?
I am going, my partner, a business partner and I have been going for 12 years and we've got to a really good spot, but we know that doing the same thing over and over again isn't going to get us any further. So what we've done is we've refreshed our management team under us with a bunch of very smart people who are a lot younger than us. And what we want to do is empower them to continue what we're doing, continue to challenge the industry's perceptions, continue to deliver work that is linked to profit. Where I go from here is I make sure the people who work for me, who are coming up through the ranks, take over my business and push them forward with this philosophical grounding.
And that's a wrap. Huge thanks to James McDonald for dropping truth bombs, like he's on a mission to detox the entire ad industry, one metric at a time. If you're still measuring success by click-through rate after this episode, I can't help you. Big shout out to our sponsors who actually believe in reality-based marketing. Troutman Amin, the legal heavyweights keeping advertisers out of orange jumpsuits, and Incremental, the only platform that gives you attribution without hallucinating results. As always, stay bold, stay curious, and know more than you did yesterday. See you next time.
I just had to find a way to get next to you. I'm here to testify, give me a chance, I'm satisfied.